views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Coming up on this week's Today's Verdict, a family court has, just as many of us, had to adjust to the new coronavirus landscape. From orders of protection to child custody, there is a new normal for many of us who seek protections. We will have an attorney from the Legal Aid Society to give us the update. Next up, restaurants have been hit the hardest during the pandemic, but there are resources available, including a restaurant rescue plan. A guest from the New York City Hospitality Alliance will be on to give us an update. And finally, most of us have been hit hard financially during the coronavirus pandemic. Prioritizing bills and reducing spending is essential. We have a director of financial counseling to help ease your mind and wallet. As you can see, we have much to get to, so stay tuned. Today's Verdict starts right now. With Laura Russell from the Family DV Unit of Legal Aid. First of all, Laura, how are you feeling? How are you doing today?
I'm feeling good. It's a nice day out. The window's open behind me, so things are good.
What I like to hear. All right. Family court, just like so many other situations, has probably been affected through the pandemic. Tell me, when we first got locked down here in New York City, how did family court react? Was it completely closed? What happened in the very, very beginning? If you could just walk the viewers through it a little bit.
So in the very beginning, family court shut its doors, and they stated that they were going to start going virtual. There's a lot of emergencies in family court, so they did, I would say, within a week to a week and a half, they were able to virtually open a few parts to allow for what they call essential filings, which really are emergency filings. So they were allowing people to file orders of protection. They were allowing the delinquencies to be filed, and they were allowing child protective to be filed. That was really the only thing that we were seeing filed for the first month, almost a month and a half. And then the courts opened up more virtual parts, and they're slowly looking at filing of other cases, but that's where we were in the beginning.
Let's talk a little about the orders of protection specifically now. What types of orders are generally people looking for when they approach family court, just to begin with?
So before the pandemic, people came to family court for orders of protection, custody visitation, child support, spousal support, child abuse cases, and delinquencies. The essential filings have limited that. And so with orders of protection, people are really seeking to either exclude their significant other from the home, or they're looking for what's called a refrain from, which is do not menace, harass, or assault. And that both of those orders are happening through the family courts at the moment.
Well, now that families are unfortunately forced to quarantine together and they may not be getting along very well, does there seem to be an uptick in abuse issues and requests for orders of protection by spouses?
So what we're seeing is definitely because of the pandemic, we're seeing an uptick in hits to websites. And the state has instituted a domestic violence reach out through a chat system or a text system. So they are seeing that roll out. What we're not seeing are the phone calls. In the beginning, very few people were making phone calls. And we tend to think that was because people are sheltering together. There's one iPad, there's 5 people. And it's very difficult to get the time to actually privately have a conversation. But the websites for domestic violence survivors, both run by the city and private agencies, have seen a very large uptick in hits.
Does it look like now, as we're maybe starting to open, or New York City is getting closer and closer, that people will venture outside of their homes to make these calls or to do different things to possibly get the family court involved?
I mean, it's a very tricky situation because in a lot of these cases, people are sharing cell phone or cell phone plans. And so they're afraid to make the phone calls. So I don't know if I would say that people are going to venture out to make the calls, but I do see that the websites are becoming more robust with what they're able to do. So.
All right, let's shift gears for a second to custody. Certainly, there are many families who are sharing custody. I have friends of mine who've been complaining that they weren't able to see their kids for a couple of weeks, or their spouses have said that they've had the kids for too long, and then all of a sudden there seems to be discord once again. What have you heard about custody issues?
So interestingly enough, we have had many situations and many more since the pandemic where the parties are actually working together, because currently the family courts are not considering custody and visitation petitions, initial filings, as essential. So they're really not hearing those at the moment. So the parties are kind of forced to work together. And because of that, they are working together more than I would say in the past. Sorry.
It always seems it's supposed to be for the best interest of the child. And it may not be in the best interest of the child to keep shuffling a child back and forth during a pandemic, just so that one spouse can say that they had a right to see the child. I would think working it out would be in the best interest of the child.
Yes, and we've had many situations where shuffling the child back and forth is not in the best interest of the child. There has been very few litigated cases at this point. We've only seen one actually come down stating that if you can bring the child back and forth safely and you can cooperate to do that, that you should exercise visitation. I mean, the key really is that what the courts look at is that the parents are working together. So if one parent is saying, I'm not letting you take the child, even if you have a car and you pick the child up and you're home alone with the child and you don't leave the house, the courts are going to frown on that. So you really have to work together in some way so that the children can see both parents.
Listen, I know it's not your specialty. I want to talk just very briefly about the juvenile delinquency cases. What have you heard? What's been going on with that particular issue?
So the court has parts open for delinquency proceedings. As you know, they have a criminal nature to them, so they are required to be done quickly. The courts are open 7 days a week till 8 p.m. for arraignments, which is the initial proceeding in a delinquency matter. Now, when I say open, I mean virtually. No one should be going to the courts. All the brick and mortar buildings are closed. But they are hearing delinquencies, and they do have parts available to hear delinquencies. So those cases are moving.
Does it seem to you that there may be some type of positive aspects that could come out of a new virtual world when it comes to family court? Is there something that we can take from this?
Ideally, many of the practitioners who practice in family court, because it's a very high volume court, would like to see the court move to more of a virtual atmosphere. And would like to think about courts really looking at when litigants have to come to court. I mean, litigants take time off from their job. They have to take a day off. They may lose pay. Is it really necessary for them to be in court at every court appearance? Is it necessary for us to sit in court for 4 hours to see a judge for 15 minutes? So we're really looking at that to see and to say, look, it worked before. If everybody has the right technology, maybe it can continue to work like that. And we don't want 1,000 people walking through the family court doors as soon as this opens. So the court system and the Legal Aid Society and other agencies are really looking to see how we can make this virtual system work in some regard so that these cases move and everyone's safe.
Okay, and some final tips. Someone's watching, they're having an issue. They don't know how to get the family court involved. What would you tell them? So
the first thing is try to work it out. If you can't work it out, there is an electronic emailing system for essential filings. If you've ever been in family court, you have a docket number which starts with a letter. So you should absolutely be filing something on that docket number. File it by order to show cause. Really make an argument for why it's so important that the judge hears you now. And it's right now, even if you couch it in terms of an emergency or in terms of an order of protection, the courts will listen to you. And really the idea is that the courts do want to help you, but they recognize there are some bans, so do what you can.
Laura, good stuff. And hopefully the next time we see you, it'll be in studio. And most importantly, please stay safe.
Thank you. You too. And you have a good day.
All right, we'll be back with more Today's Verdict right after this. Here with Andrew Rigie from the New York City Hospitality Alliance. First of all, Andrew, how are you feeling? How are you doing today?
So thankfully I'm, healthy, but we've been going around the clock for the past couple of months and it's been pretty intense, but we're fighting strong.
Well, this hospitality industry has really been hit probably the hardest out of everybody, other than, maybe a few industries here and there. When we're talking about hospitality, let's make sure the viewers understand what's included in that group.
So we are the New York City Hospitality Alliance. So our organization represents restaurants, bars, nightclubs, some hotels that have a real kind of food and beverage, kind of driven component. So that's for us. I mean, hospitality certainly could be larger, but for our organization, we really focus on the restaurants and the nightlife establishments.
What seems to have been hit the hardest? I mean, I know there's so many different parts of hospitality. Again, you were talking about restaurants, bars, clubs. What seems to be, or is definitely going to be, the hardest to come back from?
Yeah, I mean, nightlife. You're talking about live music venues, dance clubs. These are places that, can't open at 50% reduced occupancy. They're not serving food. When are people going to start going back to see a live band or going to a nightclub with, hundreds or thousands of people next to each other dancing? That is going to be the most difficult. And that's why we may need some specific policies, because who knows when they're going to be able to come back, and who knows when the public is going to be comfortable like being in a packed club.
And virtual doesn't really work for them. I mean, virtual may work for you and I recording this, or for your business meetings, but a virtual doesn't really work with live club music, does it really?
No, there's been a couple of DJs that have found a lot of success. The nightlife industry is very, very creative. So there's been some cool like online events and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, at the core, it's being with people in real life. So that's not going to make up, and it certainly isn't going to pay the bills.
Let's talk restaurants.
Yes.
We know that, some restaurants have taken the loan, the PPP loan, and, they have to pay their waiters and waitresses to be forgiven, but will they even be able to get patrons back into the restaurant to pay the waiters and waitresses? Tell me what's your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so the PPP is the Paycheck Protection Program that was passed by the federal government, and it's a good program if you are a company where you have people who are working remotely. But if you're a restaurant, your cooks, your bartenders, your waiters, waitresses, they need to be there serving guests. So as the way the PPP is currently structured, it's a loan that can be converted to a grant if you meet specific conditions. One of those conditions is that restaurants hire back their employees to approximately pre-pandemic staffing levels by the end of June. Well, we're not even going to be open by the end of June. And once we do reopen, it's going to be under reduced occupancy and social distancing requirements. So we're not going to have a need for all of the staff. So we're supposed to hire people back to currently not work because we're closed. And then when we do reopen, we're going to have all of our staff, but only, if we're lucky, half of our business, and we'll lay off the people again. So it really doesn't work for our industry. We are working, we just did a call with Senator Schumer, who's been a great advocate, to extend the term of forgiveness for the PPP loan until the end of the year. So a restaurant has until the end of the year to hire back their employees rather than the end of June. And the other part of that is to allow more than 25% of that loan to go to pay rent and utilities and other expenses. Currently, it's capped at 25%.
Well, let me ask you a question. So let's say the restaurant opens, right? 2 weeks from now, a month maybe, opens up. You're obviously only going to be able to get half the people in there, even if people came back to the restaurants and they felt comfortable. What's your guesstimate on how many may not really survive? There has to be an idea that you may have or a figure.
Yeah, listen, it's so hard to guess. There's so many restaurants that we know that already have said they're permanently shuttering. I think a lot is going to depend on what happens in the coming weeks with changes to the Paycheck Protection Program that I just mentioned. That if it's not amended to allow a longer forgiveness period and more to do rent, I think we'll see a higher percentage. I've heard people say 50% of restaurants. I've heard people say 25% of restaurants. I'm actually saying I don't know, because until we see what policies come out of our federal, state, and city government, we're not going to know what kind of lifeline these small business owners have.
Does it look like the takeout may keep them going until things start to really calm down, whether there's a vaccine or something? Can that get you through? But really,
even the restaurants that did a big takeout business before the pandemic, they can't survive just doing delivery and takeout. Most of the people that I spoke with, they said, listen, we stayed open because we wanted to try to keep a couple of our people employed and because we wanted to be a service to our neighborhood. The other part, it's not just about being a small business, but it's also our industry is a vital part of the food supply system in New York City. If we're not delivering and doing takeout, it's going to put more pressure on grocery stores and these other places to get food. So they're doing it as a service to the city, service to their community. And thankfully, yesterday, Mayor de Blasio signed legislation that we advocated for that capped third-party delivery fees during the emergency. And we're going to really be pushing to get a permanent cap, because the 15 to 30% that companies like Grubhub and Seamless take for each order was unsustainable before the crisis, and frankly, it's unconscionable during the crisis.
It's really, and I'll say this as the host, it's disgusting. Basically, taking that type of money from these businesses that are about to go under. What are your thoughts in terms of politicians really getting behind the I know you talked about Schumer, you talked about de Blasio. Does it seem like they are rallying around the hospitality industry? Does it look like that's really happening now?
Yeah, I got to tell you, so for a long time, I've been doing this work and grew up in this industry. And, people always love to say, we love small business, our local restaurant, our neighborhood pub. We need to preserve our mom and pop shops. But many of those same people often then supported policies that made it more and more difficult for those exact types of businesses to survive. But I will say times have changed. Yesterday, I spoke at a bill signing with Mayor de Blasio for a package of legislation, about 6 bills shepherded through by City Council Speaker Corey Johnson. And right in the Bronx, Councilmember Mark Jonai has been an incredible advocate for the small business community. They all seem to really get it. I don't remember the last time, if ever, the City Council passed this many small business bills in one day. I think people are seeing that we are losing our small businesses that are the backbones of our communities. They employ New Yorkers. And if they don't move swiftly to enact policies, we're not going to get them back. So they are being supportive, but we're going to need this to be aggressively supportive in not only the short and midterm, but also the long term.
Well, it looks like you've been working around the clock on this, which has been wonderful. Final tip. Someone's watching right now. They're a restaurateur or a nightclub owner. What would you tell them? They're struggling. They're going through a tough time. Give them some advice.
So 2 tips. The first one is get engaged. I know this is an incredibly difficult time. People are losing their businesses. They've laid off their employees, many of whom are like family, but you need to stay engaged. Get involved with organizations like the New York City Hospitality Alliance, your local Chamber of Commerce. We need to not only talk about it, but be about it. Contact your elected officials. Use our vibrancy that we bring and our vitality to the city and channel it to influence policy that will support our industry.
If you have someone that you think should be on the show, a legislator, someone, because we've had many people on recently, from state senators to assemblymen. If you think there's someone who wants to come on, you bring them on, because this is important. And I really think
I definitely will. And if we have 1 second, my second tip is more of an operational one. Someone had said to me, it's very difficult to change the tires of a car when you're moving. Well, now we're at a stop sign. So look inside of your business and the things that you used to be doing that you always, oh, I wish I had the time to fix this, or that wasn't really working, but you were so busy in motion 24/7, nights, weekends, holidays to get it done, you didn't. How can you build your business and make modifications now so when you do hopefully come back, you will be in a stronger and more resilient place?
We'll leave it with that. Andrew, thanks so much. Stay safe. Next time we'll see you hopefully in studio.
Yes, or hopefully even inside a restaurant.
In a restaurant.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be back with more of Today's Verdict. Stay with us right after this. We're here with Gwen Hartstein of the New York Legal Assistance Group. Gwen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you, David?
Very good. First of all, how are you feeling? Been safe and sound? Everything good?
Yes. Thank goodness for me and my family. Yes.
It's important. All right, now let's get to the finances. Everyone's either losing money, stock market, or they don't have a job, can't pay their bills, rent, and the stress is enormous. But that's why we have you here. So could you please talk to my viewers a little bit and let them know what they could do to alleviate the stressful condition that the pandemic has caused financially?
Yes. So, I have 10 steps that they are repeatable, so they're not, like independent from each other. You just do them in one round. And the first one is, don't panic. Unfortunately, we go through panic mode, and that really messes with our decision-making skills. And you have every right to freak out. Like, I freaked out. My family freaked out. But after the emotions are put down, you're going to need to calm down, do the woosah, do what you have to do, and don't panic, because you are your own expert in your finances. So you know what you and your family need. So take a step back, right? Step 2 is take a look at how you spend your money. A lot of people say, okay, well, let me see how much I have left. Well, what you have left is dependent on what you've been spending your money on. So look at what you're spending your money on. Are they priorities? Are they really necessary right now? Look to see what accounts you have, your bank statements, your credit card statements, any debit card statements. Look at everything. Look at where you're spending your money. Then step 3 is to look at your income. Look at what's coming in, what you already have, what you expect to have, like tax refunds if you haven't done that yet. If you received any stimulus, if you're receiving any other type of income from a household member, look at that. And then this is preparing you to actually write your budget for these trying times, right? So when you're writing your budget, what you're doing is you're looking at what your priorities are. For a lot of us, that's rent, that's food, that's a telephone service of some kind, because that keeps you connected to your work and other family members. It could be your medications. It could be anything that's very important for you and your family to survive with basic needs. Now, in this new budget, you're going to be looking for, which is step 5, new opportunities to save your money. Not just necessarily, okay, we're not going to spend money on this item or that item. It's more like, okay, well, if we got to go grocery shopping, let's find what we can save money on. My favorite example is a can of beans, right? There's pinto beans galore. Different companies have different beans, from Goya to Vitaros to all kinds of different companies. But there's a price difference. It's the same type of bean, but there's a price difference. So if your local supermarket grocery store is selling the same can of pinto beans for 79 cents, and there's another one for $1.29, it would make financial sense to just go with the 79 cents one,
Sure,
so that you're saving your money.
Let me stop you for a second.
Yeah,
Let me ask a question. Are some of the either the credit cards or landlords, have there been any kind of forgiveness going on here, or has there been any type of help from the companies themselves or the landlords themselves to try and get you through this difficult time?
Not that I've heard of. I'm sorry. I know that there has been some legal action, but not necessarily suing or anything like that. It's just some type of legal inquiry to get rent forgiveness or something, because we know that there's forbearance for mortgage. So if you're a homeowner, co-op, a condo, anything like that, then there's some type of mortgage for forbearance. But for rent, not so much. So it is difficult because we have a majority of our, participants and constituents in the city are renters, and they are living paycheck to paycheck.
Okay, let's keep going. Number 6.
Yeah.
What do you else?
All right. So number 6 is utilize the resources that are made available to you. This is very, very difficult for some people because they don't know. They have no idea. They go day by day with what's in their pocket and what they know. So they might not know that the community center, down the block is actually offering pantry foods or, some type of service that can help.
And you shouldn't be embarrassed to go
No.
to the pantry. You should not be.
No, not at all. In fact, I grew up on pantry food and going to soup kitchens. That's just a way to help. Yeah. There's no shame. There's more people going for pantries and soup kitchens now, in safe proximity as well. So yeah, utilize your resources. There are so many companies out there and organizations, nonprofit, that are helping with that. Now, if you're not attached to any type of organization like a back to work program or some type of nonprofit, then a Google search of your community board would definitely be the best help. Community boards are all over the city. Just put, Google community board for zip code, your zip code, and they will be able to point you in the right direction to the resources that you and your family could use to save money. All right. So number 7, check your credit history. Not that you're going to open up any credit lines, but you want to be on top of that as well, because there unfortunately is no a way to stop collection agencies to calling you. They're just going to do that, harass you.
I've tried. They keep calling. They call. They just keep going. They cannot be stopped.
No, they won't. They're just trying to squeeze you. They're a business. It's a business. So how you can protect yourself is to check your credit. Annualcreditreport.com is giving taxpayers, consumers, you and I, David, and everyone else, an opportunity to pull your credit report on a weekly basis. You get all 3 of them: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion.
Okay, we don't have too much time. Keep going.
All right. So number 8 is look for creative ways to generate income. Right now, everything's online. So look to see if you're able to sell art, if you have that, run an online business. Let's see, look for jobs such as customer service that are online. Become a virtual assistant, something that is online, because, those businesses are, they're doing a little bit better than, the brick and mortar. Okay. Number 9, and this one actually goes beyond finances. You should always look for a way to develop your skill set, because once you're out of this or any other type of financial crisis, you want to come out a bit better, a bit more information on your resume, so you can go ahead and apply for those jobs that are paying a bit more, that do offer you a promotion, do offer you a bit more for you and your family. And David?
Bring it home. Number 10.
Yeah, number 10 is remember that creating a financial plan is not just for a crisis. You can use these steps for building an emergency plan, building, just relooking at your finances. Every time you earn money, see what's going on with your budget, see where you can save, because saving is the key to moving on through difficult times like this. And on top of that, included in step 10 is if you ever feel like you need a refresher, just go ahead and go back to step number 1. Don't panic.
Gwen, thanks so much. Well, that's all for our show today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and of course you, the viewers, for watching. If you have any questions about the show, please email me at davidlesch@bronxnet.org. And from all of us at Today's Verdict, always remember, know your issues, learn the law, reach a verdict with us. We'll see you next time, 2 weeks. Stay safe.